And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the one-on-one session for the HRM department. I am Melissa Bridgewater, and indeed it is my pleasure to take you through information about the HRM program at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. Before I start my presentation, I want to say two things, of course. Firstly, I want to thank my colleagues who would have gone before. So Mr. Nigel Bagwatsaran of the Project Management Department, Barry Parasram of the OSH Department, Colin Bartholomew of the Cooperative Studies Department. And I also say thank you for those who will be coming behind me over the course of the next 2 weeks. Ms. Adriana Archer of the Security Administration Management Department and Ian Daniel from the Labor Studies Department. Secondly, I know that we are in trying times, uncharted waters, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect us in ways we didn't think possible. So of course, I am trusting that all of you all are safe wherever you are. And for those of you all, unfortunately, who may have lost loved ones, family members, friends or so, or they are unfortunately not in a good position right now, we extend our prayers, our condolences, and our support, because it's important to do so as not only an individual, but an institution and a nation and a society. So on that note, I want to talk to you a little bit about HRM, Human Resource Management, and I want to ask you, what has been the greatest challenge for you as an employee during this pandemic? And while you all are pondering that, I am going to take the opportunity, if you will permit me, to share my screen. So yes, what are some of the things? What are some of the things? We know right now, work-life balance has become a hot topic. We know that, income uncertainty has become another hot topic in terms of remote work. Because remember, when we first started, approximately 3/4 of the population, working population, were working in a physical workspace. And now, a year and a half later, it has flipped the script, whereby, at least 75% of people are now working at home, working remotely. So it's really an interesting time. And I always say, in terms of human resource management as well, it's an interesting time for people who are interested in the field, people who are practitioners, because there are so many challenges. And you might say, well, challenges, but why you would say challenges are a good thing? Because when we have challenges, we can turn them into opportunities. And many institutions and organizations are using these challenges to do better. And the good thing about it is HR is the driving force behind some of the organization's changes in terms of the culture, in terms of the structure. So let's talk a little bit more about it there. So while you all were pondering, I actually wanted to share some of the most common issues submitted during the pandemic. And if you look at it, the top, employee disputes. So, we look at it because people have concerns about whether it be from the pay perspective, whether it be from their working conditions, and whether it is from a unionized or non-unionized environment. We are seeing that employee disputes are coming to the forefront because, there are people who, fortunately, are getting threats of discrimination, they're getting bullying, cyberbullying. So you're looking at all these different things, and the fact that it's 52.3% shows that it's so high, and it's a very common factor. As well, not far behind at 45.6, the employee benefits. Because we know now, right now too, yes, people are concerned about their monetary, but we also have other things happening. There are people who may be parents, who may be looking for flexi hours in terms of their support and those kinds of things. So what employee benefits are being put in place to assist employees and people within the organization? The workplace safety issues. So what happens now if there's someone who, might not be well, or who do we allow in the compound? What do we allow in the compound? What precautions? So for example, right now, even in terms of vaccination, we know that vaccination is also a very hot topic as we go along in terms of who should be vaccinated, how should be vaccinated, and those kinds of things. So we also have to be mindful of that, because as you look at SHRM actually had a report, a miniature report blog that looked at, hey, if it is we vaccinating people, should we still wear our mask if it is we go back out? And people were undecided. People were looking at, well, what should we do in terms of policy creation, vaccination? So it's a very interesting concept. Being denied time off because of the type of organization people may be in. Unfortunately, if they are the main person, the go-to person, there's a chance they may be denied time off. But of course, the thing about it is it affects people, because sometimes you need that time off. You need that time off to regroup and those kinds of things. Looking at the work from home equipment issues, because we are under the presumption that, hey, everybody should have a tablet. Everybody should have a laptop. Everybody should have internet. And it's not so. And we are realizing that more and more. So unfortunately, some of our colleagues within our organization may be left behind because they don't have that working from home, luxury that people believe should be easily accessible. I'm also going to take a look at being denied the sick leave, because, there are some organizations who may say, well, we're not too sure, you already exceeded your sick leave. So these also become problematic. I'm going to skip down there in terms of the incorrect or delayed paycheck, because we know as well at 17.4%, that is a problem, because we know that people have bills to pay. They have commitments to make. And right now, it's such a volatile time. You don't know how it may impact. Recently in Trinidad and Tobago, we have been hearing the discussion about how the banks might not have been or might not be as accommodating as other institutions in terms of mortgages or debts and so. So people are nervous, people are worried. Employee productivity, because the thing about it is, we know right now that many of us are faced with transforming our living room, our dining room, our kitchen into a workspace. And depending on what is happening within the organization, if you're having a meeting, you might also be at the same time listening to your child or your children's teacher giving a session. And as a result, as much as you want to be productive in that moment, you can't, because you're trying to gauge that. So your productivity may then kick in later on in the evening after the session, your child's classes, those kinds of things. Cyberbullying, when we look at the cyberbullying as well, we realize that people have become vicious, and the unfortunate thing about it is people have changed during the pandemic, because they are accustomed to getting their relief out different situations and so different outlets. But now you're not getting that as much. So what do you do? So there are some people who unfortunately feel the need to cyberbully, so We have seen that on social media and those kinds of things, as well as looking at employee gossip. There are some people who unfortunately have nothing more to do. And as such, they try to gossip about people who are contributing to the organization. First, we know that the poor work-life balance is a great consideration. So even though, interestingly enough, it's at the end of lower end of the spectrum at 12.3%, we know that, hey, with the technological impact, there's the expectation that people expect you to be on, to address an email instantly, to once you call, somebody calls you, they expect you to call right back, and people have become a little snippy, a little salty, depending on what is happening. And because of that, people's work-life situation has also been affected, because as I mentioned earlier, in terms of if you are making sure that your child or your charge is sorted out during classes, and the things that we normally would do to maintain our life part of balance, we can't do right now. So many people focus more on the work aspect because they're trying to deal as best as they can with the lack of life balance. So as a result, it's skewed. Employee stress levels. We have several triggers. We know right now there are so many things that can impact. And I always say, what might be a trigger for you may not be a trigger for someone else. And we realize though, that employees have different stressors, different triggers. So we have to make sure that people are feeling safe enough to deal with their stress, to talk about their stress, whether they have to go to EAP and those kind of things. So it's interesting in terms of the common HR issues, in terms of getting that snapshot as to what it is. All right. So from here, I also found it interesting in terms of what they believed employees and the organization believe should be expectations of HR and the HR department during the pandemic. And if you notice here, 60% of people thought that HR should ensure that employees have everything they need to work from home successfully. So all the resources, everything, they believe that, hey, HR, you are supposed to handle that. Now, of course, even though we're in the pandemic era expectations, there are some aspects of this list that also fall within the traditional remit of human resource management. So of course, being able to manage the employee benefits, that is also a key factor, as you notice there. Notice, interestingly enough now, promoting the employee work-life balance. So, we would have mentioned it. So even though it was on the lower end in terms of the common HR issues, you notice that it's a higher expectation in terms of, the organization and how HR is supposed to chart. When we look at it as well, hiring our employees, also high on the spectrum, building an inclusive workplace, because we know right now, based on so many things that are happening, we have various movements throughout the world. So we have the Black Lives Matter, we have the LGBTIQ movement, we have, the Me Too, sexual harassment movement. So it's about promoting that concept of, equity, inclusion, equality. So we expect HR to do that. Of course, interviewing employees, also a major facet. Managing the employee payroll, so I think at 39%. Firing employees, and the thing about it is, of course, people don't want to, HR practitioners, professionals don't want to fire people. Sometimes people may believe so, but it's not the case. So they may try to take all the different measures, but the reality is based on the pandemic, because how much can you do if your organization is not necessarily in the best shape or the best structure? So there can be only so much that you can do at that point in time for your employees. It's a hard pill to swallow, for HR practitioners who are trying to make sure, but it is an unfortunate reality, and it's a reality that we continue to see across not only Trinidad and Tobago, but the region and the globe. Training new employees too, because the thing about it is, yes, you may have your new employees, but how are you, onboarding them? How are you getting them? Because this is a totally different experience. The remote workplace safety issues. So even though you may be working remotely, your workplace space may not be conducive. So how do we address that as HR? Looking at the concept of no cyberbullying at work, so 31.9%, and then providing support for employees who are parents, and that comes down, even though that comes down to the end at 31.1, we know that is key for so many people who may be guardians, who may be parents, and so, because they're trying to juggle it all and do it. And if it is, HR is able to provide some support, whether it be emotional, whether it be, saying, hey, a note, or saying, well, all right, these are the resources we have, or calling in, that will help a long way. So now, based on those, we have realized that there are several challenges for HR practitioners and professionals during this working remotely experience. And if you notice here, first one, the difficulty gauging employee morale, because we don't know, because right now people are hiding behind the screen, and they're not able to work as they may like, or they may have some down days. So we can't tell. They may produce their work, but because we are so much behind the screen, we don't know what may be happening with that employee. As well, they may have some personal circumstances and situations that may also impact on the employee morale. So we have to be mindful of that. When we look at it too, 47.6% look at the concerns over employee mental health due to remote work. Because there are some people who are extroverts, we know that. Now, those people who have been introverts, many of them have said that, who I have interacted with, let me put it that way. I've said, well, I am so comfortable and so, but there are some who are extroverted and say, well, look, I under stress. I trying to figure out what to do, because sometimes I could go here, I could do this, but whole day now I just in the house. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere, family making noise, this one making noise, the neighbors doing something. So all these are triggering various aspects of mental health. And the thing about it is, we consider mental health a taboo subject all the time, because the perception is that if you talk about mental health, somebody is crazy, or you feel that, hey, you're not making sense. You really have to go to the madhouse, or people might tend to try and tiptoe around you, and you don't want that. So we realize though that mental health and the different facets are becoming more and more important, not only from the remote work perspective, I would say, but just overall, because even for organizations who do have the plan to return fully to the physical workplace, they will have employees who will also have mental health concerns and issues based on for that. Another newfound challenge is difficulty monitoring employee behavior, because you don't know, as I say again, too, in terms of the screen, you're not sure. So somebody could be telling you, yes, well, we'll be working on this, but they're really not. The employee adaptability to remote work. And when we look at that as well, we have realized, again, based on the presumption, where we expected everybody to have a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone or some kind of level of device, there are some employees who don't know how to adapt to remote work. whether maybe because of their personal conditions, whether because of their technological challenges. So while they might have been working as a staff in the organization from a physical context, now that level to adapt has been posing problems, and that challenges. In terms of the difficulty recruiting new talent, when we look at that as well, 37.9%, because I know you're seeing the percentages as we go down, people through this experience and through this pandemic, because of loss of jobs, because of varying aspects, and because of financial constraints within an organization, and society itself, it's hard to recruit people because there are some people who may say, look, I prefer to be where I am right now. I'm comfortable being safe at home. There are some people who say, well, look, I have now created my own business. So, people who might have previously been available may no longer be. So you have to be mindful of that. As well, in terms of difficulty interviewing, because you realize that, hey, people may say, well, hi, all right, we're talking to you. Here I am talking to you right now. But oops, internet goes, or the laptop shuts down, or, there's some noise within the background. So the interviewing experience, is challenged. When we look at it as well, difficulty providing resources, whether it be from the perspective of office supplies, because there are some employees who may still need office supplies depending on where they're working, how they're working, and so forth. Looking at the answers to questions, because sometimes you might be in a particular, from the HR perspective, you might be awaiting information from another department, but because they might be short-staffed or swamped as well, you may not be able to provide the timely feedback that you would like to provide at that time. We also know that there are flippant employee attitudes, and that poses a problem, because the unfortunate thing is, and we're seeing that right through, even before any physical workplace, there would have been some people who might say, well, once I get my paycheck at the end of the month, so whatever could happen here. But many organizations have to be agile, have to be flexible, have to be able to make these changes. So if it is you have some employees who feel that way and may not be contributing, it also poses a problem to the growth and change that may be needed within the organization. Firing or furloughing team members, because we realize that this is also hard, and as I would have alluded to before, that it's not easy to fire people. And even the concept of furloughing, where it's like leave with no pay, kind of thing, until we get back on the feet. That is the American term. And it's a hard experience. And what I will do, I have a friend who is a pilot, and it's been very interesting. I wouldn't call the airline, but there would have been approximately 9 to 10 flights that he would have been doing that particular route for. And during the pandemic, it had been reduced to 2. So who then would get those flights? So they had no choice but to furlough the pilots. Many of the pilots within that airline now move, and many of them now are trying to make ends meet, because they have obligations. Because even though the pandemic is stopping us from our physical activities, depending on where we are and how we are, our other obligations still remain. So that still becomes a problem. And then unfortunately, with terms of sick leave, fraud, and time theft, there are some people who look to defraud the organization in terms of that concept of the sick leave. So they may really say, well, I'm sick, but are really not sick. So that is something that we have to be mindful of. So, oh, yes, and now as I'm looking here, getting a little comment. Excellent, excellent. Yes, challenges, getting the timely information from management about policies. Wonderful. That's what I'm talking about. You know, if the co-worker gets ill. So yes, you are seeing these things popping up, and I appreciate that. That means, you all are watching and looking, and I'm appreciating that and taking it in. And you might want to say, well, why is she sharing these challenges? Why is she sharing, the expectations? My thing is, I am a firm believer in the concept of realistic recruitment, where you are able to share what is ahead of you. And that's why I say it is an interesting, exciting time from HR, but for HR, but it's also going to be a challenging time. But the thing about it is, if it is you have that drive, that determination, and that passion for HR, you're going to be able to push through. And that is the excellent thing about it. So at this point in time, what I would like to do is to share the screen with my adjunct faculty member, Mr. Christopher Vento. And I'm so pleased to introduce him because he is a Cipriani graduate from the HRM department program. He would have completed his undergraduate degree. He would have gone on to pursue his master's and so. And it's a great experience because, yes, I would have also lectured him. So I'm not gonna say, give away my age or my time as the case may be. But it's wonderful to see that growth and development. And it's also wonderful for me to see him coming back to give back and also to transition from graduate to lecturer faculty member. So he is going to share some information as to the importance of HRM. Christopher?
Thank you so much for the introduction, Ms. Bridgewater, and pleasant good afternoon to everyone who is logged on. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this. I strongly believe that this is a great opportunity for persons to explore this area of study. And if you've had prior knowledge, prior experience, prior formal education, it's also an opportunity to advance your knowledge because of the time that we're in. And I am of the strong belief as well that HR practitioners in particular must assert themselves more in organizations, be counted for, be counted for and be accounted for. The thing is, we have work to do, and it's time now more than ever for HR practitioners to show their worth. And how do we do this? We have to be seen, ladies and gentlemen. We have to be seen. Now, being actively involved in organizing and planning and helping the organization to survive and to come out of very difficult situations, business disruptions, disasters. Well, I mean, the trending thing right now is the COVID-19 pandemic. HR must be fully involved in these initiatives for business continuity, and also being actively involved in planning for the effects the pandemic may have on its employees and customers as well, all stakeholders involved. So there must be an active participation from HR where that is concerned. Also allowing persons to work remotely, all right, which no, not yet. All right. Now, notwithstanding, just being realistic here, notwithstanding the challenges that HR faces, this is for the working people. With top management, to get them to buy into certain initiatives and the possible bureaucracy that may follow. Now it happens. All right. One such question would be, this working from home, telecommuting, this working remotely. That is something that was almost taboo prior to the onset of COVID-19. Now we are seeing that this type of work arrangement is at the forefront of business operations. And to talk about a paradigm shift, all right? So I would keep pressing for HR practitioners, even though you may have barriers for change. Keep persevering, keep at it, because some good may come out of it at some point. All right, it may not be now, but at some point, some good may come out of it. Now, albeit that you may have some jobs that, well, because of the nature of the job, persons may not be able to work remotely or telecommute. We are now seeing, in terms of this paradigm shift, top management being open to the concept of alternative working arrangements. So we're now seeing those things come to the fore. And again, previously, those things were frowned upon in some quarters of society. All right. Communication, now think about it. How many of you knew about the whole host of online communication platforms prior to COVID-19? Now, some of you may be fortunate to have known, but our traditional way of communicating while at work, this has been reduced. All right. And many organizations, are now forced to adopt a more contemporary approach to communicate within and outside of the organization. All right. Now, where does HR fit in here? HR fits in at all levels. However, we must be mindful that HR ought not to work in a silo. So interrelationships must be forged, it must be built to ensure that communication strategies are sound. So you may want to work closely with or partner with IT, partner with marketing, partner with possibly legal, all right, in order for that to be realized. Time and time again, HR is seen as a cost center. A cost center. Now, we have to change that way of thinking. All right. Now, if we have good business heads on our shoulders, we can save the organization money. So HR departments must look at themselves, look from within. What can we eliminate here? What can we automate? And look for or explore options to outsource. All right. And all of this is part of organizational redesigning. All right. Now, sometimes, well, as Ms. Bridgewater alluded to, you may need to make very difficult decisions, for the sake of business survival, etc. And some of these will include, well, as you're seeing, they're redeploying, suspending or terminating employees. Ms. Bridgewater spoke about the furlough, temporary layoffs. And as subject matter experts, HR must take the lead in these sorts of things to ensure that, whatever action is taken it's in the best interest of all parties concerned. All right. And of course, all that we just spoke about, creating and implementing policies, that ties everything together. Now, all of these things, it has to be tied by policy. We need some form of control. All right. A policy that is well written, communicated, and implemented, which should have been bold. Implemented, all right, because of course it'll be useless. I mean, the words can sound nice, it can be a well put together document, but if it's not implemented, it's an exercise in futility. All right. So yes, we can move on to the next slide. Now, you need more convincing. Check this out. So according to the US News and World Report 2020, the role of HR specialists was on its list of best business jobs. You all get that, right? HR specialist was on the list of best business jobs in 2020. It was also one of the 100 best jobs overall for 2020. We are alive and well, folks. All right, we're in a good place and we need to remain there. So why HRM? So I always say this is an applied field because most, if not all, of what you're exposed to in the classroom, you see it in the workplace. You see it in the world of work. All right. Now, of course, getting formal education, you learn the things that you're supposed to do. All right, theoretical concepts, etc. In the world of work, it's a bit different. The world of work, you're faced with reality. So the challenges for the practitioner or the young practitioner is to bridge that gap between what you ought to do and what actually happens in the workplace. Granted that what actually happens is not what you ought to do. All right. So I believe that every single thing that you do in HR can create a positive impact in someone's life. So something as simple as functions as simple as staffing. All right. Where we provide opportunities and we recruit and select, go through the entire selection process, how you meet and treat with incoming staff or prospective candidates. That goes a long way. And not to forget persons who, let's just say, persons you would have interviewed who were not successful. It is incumbent upon the organization, I strongly believe, I'm a firm believer of this actually, that should someone ask for feedback or request feedback of their performance in, let's say, an interview, the organization should provide that feedback. Because the thing is, you don't want to send people away scarred. Remember, they are looking for jobs and they applied, they made it to the interview, but they were not successful. All right. As a good corporate citizen, I strongly believe that feedback should be forthcoming once it's requested. All right. So that they can stand a better chance whenever another opportunity comes forward. Performance management and motivation. Someone's career path development. All of these are things, day-to-day functions of HR. Employee assistance programs, or the access to it. Now, I mean, it's COVID-19, and it's this pandemic is affecting persons in so many ways, and HR needs to offer support to persons who may be affected, because I mean, you need to seek the interest of the company, which comprise, well, HR basically will be saying your human resources are your most valuable, so you ought to treat them as such. All right. And I mean, helping to create quality leadership. All right. And that in itself can harness motivation, which can potentially increase employee tenure. It can potentially increase it can augur well for the company. So it'll be like a win-win situation. All right. Seeing enjoy challenges. Now, as practitioners, we are made to adapt almost daily, almost on a daily basis, because something new is always coming, and it provides us with opportunities. And this is the exciting thing. It provides us with opportunities to actively practice in our profession. All right. So those challenges, whilst it may be very stressful at times, it's actually what keeps us going. All right. Differing workday every day. Well, now some of you all may relate to this, but some of you all may feel frustrated by monotonous work. Now, I'm not knocking any profession here. All right, I'm not knocking any profession here, but it happens. Some persons, feel very frustrated because the work is monotonous, the same thing over and over and over and over. Okay, fine, all well and good. But because of the nature of what we do, this profession, it's people-based, all right, by nature, and people-centered, and it's caused for interesting times. We are not automates. We are not robots. We can be unreliable. We can be uncertain. We can be unpredictable, and we're certainly undefined. All right. So based on that, I would say that it can be considered as a nice problem to have, depending on your perspective. All right. Because I mean, we're all unique persons. So you will have a different workday every day. All right. And of course, innovation. That basically goes without saying. It's one of the most used words that I'm sure we've all heard in the last 15 months or so. All right. Keeping people happy, keeping people in jobs, keeping them safe, doing all of those things in an unconventional way. That is a challenge. All right. And basically the reality is that is the name of the game. And we just need to adapt and keep pushing. Yeah. All right. So education in HRM could prepare you for any of the following professions. So we have a list of professions here, which it's not limited to, but we're talking HR. All right. So we have, it can propel you to management status, HR management, who of course, the HR manager rather, who of course runs the entire HR department. All right. A generalist, so a person within the department who has knowledge in quite a few functional areas in HR. All right. Then we have the specialists, someone with specific skill sets in particular areas of HR. Then the HR officer, who of course works in tandem with the manager, assisting with operational activities. And of course, you can take up a role in academia, all right, by sharing knowledge through teaching. And of course, it could be a combination of academia and working in corporate environments, because actually that's what I do. All right, I'm a practitioner in a corporate environment, and I also lecture at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. So I would say I have the best of both worlds, because something I picked up while as a student, the lecturers, the quality, the quality to me, I think, is second to none. And we have a whole host of professionals who thankfully chose Cipriani to impart their knowledge. And I believe I was fortunate to be exposed to many of them. All right. And like I said before, I believe HR is an applied discipline. And that is something that I picked up from, well, as a student, because that was something that I appreciated, and it makes you, it gives you a greater appreciation for the content that is being shared, and it makes it relatable. Something I always say, bringing theory to life. So bringing theory into the real world. All right, and that is what I experienced, and that is what I take with me in my sessions. All right, so yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Of course, I will be providing feedback on his presentation as well. And that's the good thing about in terms of having this experience, because we know while we may not do everything perfectly, we want to make sure that we're able to produce the best person, whether it be adjunct faculty, HR practitioner, employee, those kinds of things. So now, we would have spoken about some of the challenges and opportunities within HRM. We would have spoken about why HRM. Let's talk about why the Human Resource Management Program at Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. When we look at it, it's considered to be the most holistic program in terms of HRM. So you may have some institutions who may have a little 2 weeks or 3 weeks pertaining to training and development or compensation. So within the semester, you may learn about 3 or 4 of the major functions. However, we have these as full courses, so they are catering to students having that level of application and practical, getting that sense of, all right, this is what happens within compensation management, or developing a performance management system, or having, human resource information systems, these kinds of things. And along with that, while we have major core courses within the HR sphere, we also have complementing courses in labor, in OSH, so when you look at it, you have courses such as accounts, where you're looking, because for those who might be managing payroll, those kind of things have to have that working knowledge. What about OSH? So in terms of the legal and legislative framework within, the occupational safety and health, how does that work? When you look at it as well, introduction to industrial relations, grievance handling and arbitration. So all these things will help propel that student to understand the various facets of what can come their way as an HR practitioner. We also have warm, understanding lecturers who have experience and have your best interests at heart. Because the thing about it is, we know that there are different situations, there are different circumstances. We are just as invested as you are, as it relates to your learning, to your experience, and I am so happy in terms of having such a wide variety of lecturers in terms of the different facets of HR, but they contribute and they make sure that, hey, sometimes we may give the little buff, or the hard buff, as the case may be. And sometimes it's a case of tough love, because we see the potential in many students. And sometimes, based on what may be going on at their lives at that point in time, they're not realizing it. So we work to help you all get there, to propel and to push forward in terms of having a flexible class schedule. Because, we may have classes based on your work schedule. You may have to work shift, so based on that, it may be easier for you to take day classes because your shift might be in the evening, or vice versa. You also have Saturday classes, those kind of things that you're able to facilitate. Workshops to enhance your understanding of HR topics, because, from that perspective too, of that level of application and practical knowledge, from the theoretical perspective, we want to make sure that you understand. So most recently, one of the workshops would have been policy development and implementation. And students were so intrigued by, because you see the policy, but in terms of actually being able to develop the policy and seeing all the things that continue to go into implementing, it was a different concept. As well, looking at another workshop we had recently was also based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And people believe that, it just might be a little snippet. Students were so intrigued that there were so many facets to this concept of DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's a good thing to see. And then, of course, we have exciting and dynamic approaches to teaching and learning. So even though before, when we were in the physical workspace, we were doing our thing in terms of, debates and so, and even more so in this environment where we know that we have to keep our users engaged, our students engaged, because they may be having their own situations as we face around. So they may not be able to have on their cameras, but we want to see, hey, how are you learning? How are you applying it? So you might do little mini quizzes, or you might do a little simulation in terms of debates. So, we're talking about compensation management. Well, all right, let's try and simulate a negotiation. How does that work? So those kinds of things also lend itself to trying to engage the student even more. Yes. So this is a general snapshot of the HRM program matrix. And I'll go more into it more. So you have the 10 Saturdays, supervisory management, or the intro to HRM. You can progress from there to the certificate. The diploma is a standalone, but you can also segue into the Associate of Arts, the Bachelor of Arts. And we also have that concept of the specialized training, where we have short courses there for you to better develop your skills. Because what we are realizing now as well is that many organizations are looking for people who have the softer skills, the interpersonal skills, the empathetic skills, and how do we recognize that? So that way, we are seeing the gaps, we are seeing the things that are needed, and as such, we are putting it out there, whether it be to organizations, in terms of helping to develop them, or you as individuals, so that is what we are looking to do. So of course, from this perspective here, this is a snapshot of what the short courses and specialized training is for the period June to July. So even though some of these would have gone already, the first half here, we notice that, sorry about that. We notice that the second half is still there and still applicable. So you still have time to register for corporate governance in the security industry, the interpersonal skills for managers, looking at the essential skills for the supervisory committee member, and the sexual harassment in the workplace, law, identification, prevention, and policy. And if you notice, the dates are listed there. And the thing about it is these areas are so relevant within our workplace right now. So you might say, well, how might this help me? This is going to help a lot, because right now we are focusing on governance. We are focusing on corporate governance and how people are, and how organizations are running things. We're looking at the interpersonal skills, because we're looking at that concept of the soft skills and how a manager is doing that. And especially now, based on what we are facing, based on what we are dealing with. In terms of the essential skills for the supervisory committee member, there are many of people who are interested in terms of the credit union movement. They may want to go up for committees, but they don't know what might be entailed in that. So that helps there. And then we know that, sexual harassment in the workplace has become another growing and developing topic. So getting information as it relates to that law, that identification, prevention, and policy will also help to augur you well. So, why not whet your appetite? Why not start with a short course first before you start, the main meal? So as I say, it's an investment in yourself, because even though right now, you may not see yourself in the ideal situation, the best investment you can make in, I would say, is in yourself. And some people might say, what? Because you may have your family and all that too. I agree, your family is also very important. But if you are able to invest in yourself, you are better able to help them to develop, to grow. So it's important that you have a cadre of skills. And the reality is, we don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. So why not try to upskill yourself, try to reskill, retool, those kind of things, and get with that program. Of course, you'd be able to see these as well on our social media pages in terms of the CCLCS website, in terms of the Facebook, etc. So don't be afraid to take a look there as well. Also, we have the 10 Saturdays introductory programs, 40 hours, 10 Saturdays, and we have various areas that are listed here. You notice barbering, crisis, emergency and management, cooperative management, events, facilities, human resource management, of course, introduction to IR, introduction to OSH, project management, security administration. So you see the wide variety of those. So what I'm going to take a look at is the snapshot of the certificates and the diploma. Now, what I would say though, for people who might be beginners and you have no idea as to the concept of HRM, but you want to whet your appetite, take an introductory course. Take that introductory course, because yes, it might be a short course, but it also propels you into you determining if you want to do it. Because I always say it's about that person job fit. So you might do it and you do the course, the introductory course. And you might realize, hey, this might not be for me. So you taste it, you get to see, you say, all right, I like, or you say, I like this. And the good thing about it is, realize that several of our introductory students from the 10 Saturdays human resource or the supervisory management have progressed and have decided to come on to do further education within the HRM realm. So that's a good sign as well. So that means you feel comfortable enough and confident enough based on what you would have learned, to go further. And that is what we are trying to give, and that is what we are trying to deal with. So when we look at it here, the certificate, notice 18 credits over the course of one academic year. So the academic year normally starts from August or September of a particular year and ends approximately around May or June. Right? So you have 3 courses over one semester, 3 different days. And on the second semester would be the same thing. 3 other courses, 3 varying days. And this certificate can also go for people, I would always say, who have been out of the system for a while. They might be interested also in HR. They might have progressed from the 10 Saturdays and they want to know more about it. This is ideal for you because you're getting more of the competencies and the skills that are needed from that certificate level. And it also brings you to a place where you're getting back to that school routine for those of you all who might have been out of the system for a little while. The diploma, that is a standalone for practitioners. And if you notice there, 18 credits, also over the course of one academic year. So, you're looking even more so at the practical elements within the diploma for those areas. From there, you're going to take a look at the associate and the bachelor's, and just a general snapshot. I would have called some of the courses that you would have been, that you would be exposed to as an HR practitioner, but an HR practitioner and HR student at Cipriani. So at the associate degree level, 64 credits. It can be 2 years full-time, where you may have at least 4 to 5 courses at one point in time, or 3 years part-time, where you may have 3 courses, at least to suffice there. As opposed to the bachelor's degree, you notice 117 credits, 3.5 years full-time, and 4.5 years part-time. So with the part-time mode, you have at least 4 courses per semester, as opposed to the 3.5, where you will have at least 5. So that also puts you instead. So if it is, that you are interested, because the associate degree is also nested into the bachelor's. So it's going to be a continuation. So let's just say you would apply for the associate because you may not be sure based on what your working situation may be at this time. When you finish the associate, you can then progress to the bachelor's because you would have made those courses, you would have attained those credits. And what I always do say, though, you make sure and work towards developing a good GPA, So you make sure that you have at least a C average, and because the thing about it is, I always tell people, you can work, but sometimes people also have the expectations that they will see, a flawless transcript. We don't expect that. However, we do say that we work towards you getting better and being better, because sometimes you might have had a bad semester based on your situation, based on your condition, because I've seen students like that, and we've had discussions with them and shared with them, and they have propelled themselves because for them it was a turning point, because sometimes people don't realize that when you engage or interact or so, they might not have been even contemplating that, or sometimes you might have been that person who would have been able to change them differently, and propel them to do more. And then, but I'm looking here because at the same time, I'm also looking at the questions from the chat. All right, so I'm watching. What do you recommend for someone who already has a diploma in HRM, currently working in HRM, wanting to pursue a degree? In terms of what? So you mean in terms of recommending for the bachelor's degree or the associate degree? Well, if it is you are also working in HR, so when you apply, from the admissions perspective, because those forms are also available online and so, or you can contact through the social media platforms. We also have the email admissions@cclcs.edu.tt for further information. Based on your combination of academic and work experience, that will be able to better determine what area, whether it be the bachelor's degree or the associate level, might be better suited for you. Yes, I hope that answers your question. Certificates offered for the one-day courses. Yes, the short courses. Yes. So you would receive, a certificate of participation for pursuing one of the short courses. Yes. So why Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies? It's accredited by the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. So we have that institutional accreditation. We know that, we are considered to be key in terms of tertiary education within Trinidad and Tobago, once we have been accredited. Also, in terms of Cipriani, they gate funded for various level of program areas. So while you may not be gate funded for the specialized training or the 10 Saturday introductory courses, depending on what you might have pursued before in GATE, you might be eligible from the certificate, diploma, associate or bachelor's level to, and you can try and apply for GATE funding. The institution is well recognized within the region. And this is so true because our most recent cohort of certificate program students would have come from Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Grenada, Guyana, St. Kitts, and Nevis. And in terms of, and if it's in any other country, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you in terms of that regional perspective. But St. Lucia. But it's been so interesting, and the experience that they have also recognized. They are so pleased to have been part of education at Cipriani, at the HRM program, because the learning that they have received, as many of them have indicated, it's second to none, and it helps them to move further also into better understanding their organizations. Yes. Again, I'm seeing questions. All right. So I'm looking again at terms of the questions. So how many courses per semester for the associate degree? It may range from 3 to 4, depending on what level you're looking to get, whether it's from the full-time perspective or the part-time perspective. All right. And then I am also looking, yes, if you are thinking you've been working for the HR for 4 years, yes, apply for the BSc. So let's see, make sure and have your experience, have your relevant documents, because it's important as a budding HR practitioner as well. When you send in your application, make sure that you have your relevant documents there, because then we will be able to assess even better. Because sometimes what may happen in terms of the application process, somebody may just apply, but they don't send the requisite documents. And as such, we can only make a determination based off of what you have presented. So why not present everything that you have to be able to give a better feel and a better pathway for you? Yes. So again, because I'm looking, you all are asking those questions. Let's see. Yes, in terms of working in the internship. So yes, there is an exemption. So you would be able to contact the placement office in case there's a particular form that you would fill out. And then also we would request a particular report based on some of the functions or aspects that you would have been looking at within your organization to also make sure that that is a solid practical experience for the internship. Yes. Then again, we're looking to see in terms of the questions. So while no questions on the screen right there, right now, looking again. So because I was saying as to why CCLCS, and I was indicating that, of course, from the regional counterparts, really in terms of that level of diversity and inclusion, and we would have whet their appetites as well to go further. And then we also looking at CCLCS is charged by its vision and its mission. So when we look at it there, because CCLCS, its vision is the premier Caribbean tertiary institution for accessible world-class education, labor cooperatives, and recognized fields, related fields, and empowering people to make that positive social and economic impact. And definitely that is being done. In addition, looking, because I'm seeing that, there's another question as I roll there, but I'm also just going to spend a little moment on the mission too. Because CCLCS's mission is to empower people and strengthen those practical skills, to increase their earning potential, to add value to society. And through what? Through those relevant dynamic programs, and also to raise consciousness of the different movements. So that in itself too speaks to you, speaks to me, speaks to everyone from that perspective. So I'm looking, so don't alarm if you see me there in terms of questions. All right. Is it a wise decision to start with the associate in HRM and then transition to the business management degree? What I will say is this, because you see, you don't know what your career path may hold. I do think that having that foundation in the associate of the HRM will propel you, if it is you want to move further, because I don't know what your future intentions are. But it will certainly complement certain aspects of it if you're looking to pertain into business management. All right, if it is you haven't completed the 64 credits and you need one additional semester, can you be gate funded? I don't want to, I know that there may be certain situations that gate may do that. However, I am not as Okura, so I wouldn't want to say yes or no. However, you can send an email to the financial department, who will be better able to guide you, financial clearance at cclcs.edu.tt. Just looking in terms of the forms containing the placement office and the internship, they should be available online. If it's not, what you can do is just send an email to hmanagement@cclcs.edu.tt, and we'll liaise with the relevant department to forward you copies, as the case may be. And then as we go in again to CCLCS, affordable packages and payment plans, because unfortunately, based on certain circumstances or situations or the means test, or so you may not qualify for gate or the amount that you had anticipated. So we have those affordable packages. We have those payment plans for you, so you can pay, partially towards yourself, towards your invest in education. So as I say, continue to invest in you. Take that chance on yourself. Invest in yourself. So, of course, if it is you have questions or you want to request applications or information, those two areas are placed: admissions department at admissions@cclcs.edu.tt, or the stakeholder relations department at PR marketing at cclcs.edu.tt. As well, if it is you want further information from the HRM department, you can contact via hmanagement@cclcs.edu.tt. So, of course, that right now is the end of my presentation. I am trusting that this has been good for you. That you have been informed. Feel free. I'm seeing the questions still coming, which we're working with. All right. So if you are new to the human resource, I would recommend that you start at the certificate level first. Going again. All right, the scholarship at the certificate level, and your scholarship be extended to the associate's degree. Well, what I would say is this, at this time, I can't make a determination based off of that. That was something that, of course, the college and the respective organizations or the affiliated organizations may have to determine accordingly. But it's good that you want to continue from the certificate into the associate. So that's really great. And I am hoping that you determine and that you are able to do so. Coming, I'm watching. All right, let's see. All right, so if somebody did the HR diploma at another institution and currently has 48 credits and would like to pursue the associate degree, so what I would recommend is that you get your transcript from the other institution as well as some of the course outlines, and then we'll be able to assess what might be potential courses that you can be exempted from at the associate degree level. So that way you'll be able to plan better to know how to move forward. Yes, some of the courses, if it is in terms of the course outline for the associate and the degree in HR, there are some standalone courses that you can pursue if it is you want to make sure that it enhances your skills. However, you would know that you would receive a letter of completion. You wouldn't necessarily get a certificate to say, well, hey, I've graduated or I've gotten this course. So that is something for you to be mindful of. So it would show that, yes, you would have pursued this course and been successful, depending on the grade. After that, yes. All right, so then on that note, I want to thank you. I hope this has been very informative for you. So again, feel free to check CCLCS's social media pages, the website. Feel free to contact us, via admissions@cclcs.edu.tt, via hmanagement@cclcs.edu.tt, PR marketing at cclcs.edu.tt. And before I go, in terms of HRM2, you have to be diligent. And, you always have the concept of the early bird gets the worm. In this case, yes, the early bird does get the worm. So I would like to personally congratulate Akida Thompson, being the first person to log on for the session. And as a result, you have received a complimentary 10 Saturdays certificate. Well, you've gotten a free 10 Saturday spot in the Introductory to Human Resource Management program. So that belongs to you, Akida. So a round of applause. That introductory course, 10 Saturdays HRM. So you will be contacted further to get additional details from you. All right. So once again, I am Melissa Bridgewater, Head of Department for Human Resource Management at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. So keep safe, keep secure, keep strong, keep the faith. We shall get through this. This too shall pass. And, positive vibrations to all. So everyone have a good evening and be safe. Take care.